I want every one of my clients to have a coach. I am not just a believer. It's not a belief. It's just a knowing that you will do so much better because having a therapist is a wonderful thing to do. But the therapist is really looking at your past, helping you to heal so that you don't keep making those same mistakes going forward. The divorce coach is dealing with the present, needs to be informed about the past, of course, but is like, where are you now and where do you want to go? So they're just moving you in the direction that you are headed, which is the future, not so much about the past. So I want everyone to have a coach. It will help you set reasonable goals, helps you focus on yourself so you're not always caught up in what the responses that you're getting or what he's doing to you.
Welcome to the Divorce Survival Guide podcast, where we have open and honest conversations about co-parenting, separation, divorce, and the hardest question of all, should you stay or should you go? I'm Kate Anthony, your Divorce Survival Guide, and I'm here to help you navigate some of the roughest waters you've ever swum in and answer some of your toughest questions. I've been to hell and back, and now it's my mission in life to help you get to the other side of this process with your sanity and your heart intact.
Hey everyone, welcome back. So before we dive into today's episode, I just have a quick update about the future of this podcast as far as like sponsorship and ads go. So starting this month in March, I am making a big shift in how I approach ads and sponsorship. Up until now, for the last year or so, I have been working with an ad agency that has placed ads on the show. But moving forward, I'm stepping away from that model, and instead, I will only be working directly with brands that I know, trust, and have real relationships with. So what this means for you is that some of the ads you hear will be from podcast sponsors, some will be from affiliate partnerships. But in every case, the products and services that I share with you will be ones that I have personally vetted and invited to be part of the show. So no more random ads, just brands and resources that I truly believe in and that I think will be valuable to you. So here's the most important thing to you. You guys, my listeners, my community are always my top priority. I have so much love and respect for you, and I take the trust that you place in me so seriously. And that's really why I'm making this change, because I want every recommendation that you hear on the show to be something that I stand behind 100% and that you trust that. I know that you guys put a lot of trust in me. I want to make sure that I honor that in a really authentic way. This shift, while it will make me a lot less money, probably, it will be more authentic to the connection and the community that we have built over the years. I'm excited about this. It allows me to stay in more alignment with my mission, which is to provide you with the best tools, support, and guidance for navigating divorce and building a thriving life. Thank you for listening and for being a part of this community. I appreciate you more than I can say. And now, let's talk about this episode. So today I have back with me on the show, Andrea Vacca. She is here to explore amicable divorce solutions, even in high conflict cases. So, we always want to avoid litigation, but sometimes it's unavoidable. And so Andrea breaks down the benefits of staying out of court, how to keep children at the center, and when it's time to shift from a collaborative approach to a more litigious one. Andrea is the founder of Vacca Family Law Group in Manhattan. It's a boutique law firm focused on non-adversarial divorce and family law matters. And she really, after years of doing traditional litigation, she now exclusively helps her clients find amicable divorce solutions outside of court. Without further ado, here is my conversation with Andrea Vacca. Thank you so much for coming back on the show. It's been a while since we spoke, and I'm excited to do it again.
Me too, Kate. It's been 4 years or so. So I'm happy to be back here.
Yeah. Was it pre-pandemic, during the pandemic? What was it?
Yeah, I think we recorded right at the beginning of the pandemic, and
Yeah.
it was released, into the pandemic a bit. But
Oy, oy.
yeah.
Yes.
Here we are.
Trauma. We're going to talk about high conflict divorce. Obviously, this is a huge topic for my audience. I think there's this misconception that if you are going through a high conflict divorce, you necessarily have to go to court. What are your thoughts on that?
You may. It's not necessarily so that you must go to court. I encourage all our clients to view court as the last resort. I encourage anyone seeking a divorce, whether they're our client or not, to think about court as something that it's there if you need it, but try to do everything you can not to need it. So whether you have a high conflict marriage, low conflict marriage, high conflict marriage can mean people who don't talk to each other. It doesn't have to mean people are just yelling at each other.
And, one of the things that, I sort of often push back on the term high conflict because so often it is actually post-separation abuse, simply using the legal system as a tool for abuse. So it's really actually usually one person who is fueling the fire of the conflict. Now, that's not to say that the other person might not get sucked into the vortex of it because that's what they've been doing for the last 20 years or so. But I really do feel that it is usually one person. And because of that, trying to stay away from court is keeping a tool out of their hand as much as you can, if you can.
Somebody who doesn't want to get divorced and wants to make your life hell will do that with any process you choose. Getting divorced from this person will be hellish no matter how you do it. I always encourage people, if they believe they're with somebody who will ramp it up, who they're afraid they're going to hire that bulldog attorney and go for the jugular, I say, well, in order to stay out of court, it takes a village, so to speak. You need that team approach. You need the divorce coach. You need the financial professional, a neutral preferably, who can oversee the gathering of the data and have an objective eye on what is being spent, what is earned, where things are, what debt there is. Can really dig deep, but in a neutral way. And you need lawyers who are committed to not ramping up the tension, not making the fires even hotter than they are. It's very easy for lawyers to get pulled onto one side and say, that guy, he's the bad guy, she's the bad guy. Yeah, you can just get very positional very quickly, and then there's no room for negotiation. If you try to find the right team of people to support you, there's a better chance you can come to an agreement. It will not be fun, as I said, but you could get there more likely than not. That being said, if somebody is an addict or extremely experiencing personality disorder symptoms, there's a range of personality disorders, right? But if they're at the extreme end of any of them, then you might need a court. These people cannot come to agreements in good faith. They're not willing and able to negotiate in good faith. If you need to face that fact, to face it early.
That's right.
Don't pretend. But most people are not there. Maybe 90% of the people are not there.
I 100% agree with that. There are clients that I talk to where I say, okay, this is more serious than we really have to look at this I have a client, she had gone to mediation with her husband, who is, I believe, a psychopath, deeply psychopathic behaviors throughout their marriage and beyond. And he dragged her through 21 mediation sessions, right? And she came to me after this and I said, okay, we're done. He does not give 1 ounce of care to actually coming to agreement. The mediator should be, sanctioned and fired immediately for allowing this. But, clearly they were happy to take her money. But, really, right, this is a person who is never going to settle, clearly, right? But those cases are very few and far between. And before we hit record, you were talking about somebody you were just doing a consult with, whose sister was on the line saying, but he's a narcissist, but he's a narcissist. You were like, uh-huh.
Well, they both were talking about how they were afraid of this person not wanting to fight for full custody and go for that jugular because he would be angry. And I explained that we work with lots of people who are narcissists, and generally narcissists want to look like the good guy.
That's right.
Generally men that we're dealing with with that disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Not always, but a lot of times it's men. And they want to look good. And they don't they like control, and they don't want to be told what to do. If you put a team around them, they want to look good to the financial and the professional and give all the information. They want to look good to the parenting specialist. And and the parenting specialist will know not that they can't make you the bad guy. Right. So they'll be on their best behavior. Let's get them while they're in that place, instead of pushing them into court where they're going to go, just one side or the other. It's going to be very positional. So keep them in a place where they can negotiate and want to negotiate. So that's why the team approach is so great. And mediation would never be the right process to negotiate with this person. But there are other options. You don't have to go from mediation to the courtroom.
So, okay, let's talk about why mediation might not be the best fit for high conflict cases. And you've mentioned the team approach, which is, I think you're referring really to a collaborative divorce process, right? Which I love that idea that like you just surround them with like a bunch of people where they don't want to look like an asshole and they're kind of stuck, right? Why might mediation not be the best for this?
Well, first of all, because there's usually this power imbalance, right? Whether one person has a lot more financial information or wherewithal than the other, or whether the way they argue or the way their verbal communication is, it's just imbalanced, or their emotional regulation abilities. So there's usually there's always an imbalance, but usually it's a bigger imbalance in high conflict couples. So the mediator ends up pushing the less powerful spouse to capitulate because it's easier. Right. The other person's not going to move. What is the mediator going to do? And you don't have anyone there to support you. There's no one. You have to advocate for yourself. And usually you're not able to do that. You weren't able to do it in your marriage. You couldn't do it without triggering your spouse or being triggered by them. It probably isn't going to work in mediation either. Also, high conflict couples, it's so easy to keep going to the past. You did this, you failed to do that. I always or never did this or that. You never did this for me. The past keeps coming up normally. Yeah. And so always trying one person in the room, trying to refocus you on the present and the future. And it's a lot to do to always be moving you forward. But if you have two attorneys trying to do that with you, it's a lot easier. You have your own attorneys saying, okay, we have to stop thinking about the past. And those stories are not really helping us here. Like, where do you want to be? Generally in mediation, you just can't get out of your own way. You're just going to be stuck in the same cycle that you were in if you have this high conflict, relationship. So that I tell people, they say, how long will mediation last? I say it's usually two or three sessions for the simplest cases. But if you have more than 10 sessions, it's not the right process. If you're heading towards 10, it's probably not it may not be the right process. Like you
That's right.
Have your alert system on there. And be asking your consulting attorney, this is what progress we have or haven't made. Are we on the right track? Really assess at that moment. After 5 sessions or so, is this the right process?
Well, right. And each session should have gotten somewhere, right? If you're approaching 10 sessions, but you have gotten a really detailed parenting plan that you guys have both signed and agreed on, and you've moved on to the next thing, right? But if every time you go, he's reneging on every agreement that he made last time, no, you're not getting anywhere.
Yeah, two steps forward, one step back. Clear sign mediation's not working. Two
That's
steps
right.
forward, three steps back sometimes.
Right, exactly. And that's
Um,
that is a sign of domestic violence and post-separation abuse, that they're not there to come to agreement or consensus, which is the point of mediation.
If they're always bringing up something new or they want to revisit what you just agreed to, you're unable to build and move forward.
That's
So
right.
just call it and just say, we're not doing this. Find another process.
In talking about the team approach, I mentioned collaborative divorce. Are there other areas in which a team approach, I mean, it could just be a team of like your attorneys and your coach and that kind of thing. What do you mean by a team approach?
Okay, so in a team approach, I mean that there's more than just your two attorneys or just the mediator helping you to have these really difficult conversations. It could be a mediation. Sometimes we'll bring in the financial professional to the mediation process so that they can really do a deeper dive into the finances, or we'll bring a parenting specialist in. If the conflict is purely about what's in the best interest of the children, maybe you can stay in mediation if you bring in a parenting expert, a parenting coordinator of sorts to look at and help the two of you have this conversation. They have more education and skills than just a mediator when it comes to child development. So a team approach in mediation is possible. It could be in a negotiated agreement. Two attorneys bring in some of those professionals too into their team to help the couple.
Mm-hmm.
The most formal team approach is the collaborative divorce process. That's where you have a neutral, we call them the family specialist. They're therapists, mental health professionals. There's a neutral financial professional. There might be a neutral parenting or child specialist to bring the voice of the children into the room. Mm-hmm. That's a more formal team approach. But it could also be working with my own client's divorce coach, like you, Kate, talking, sometimes having a joint meeting with the coach, saying, I need you to talk to your coach about this. What did your coach say? What advice are you getting? I really think you should bring that up next time you're meeting with her. So that could also be the team approach. It could be your therapist. It could be anyone else that you're talking to on a regular basis to help you deal with the issues in your divorce.
Thank you for advocating for divorce coaches in this process. How far we've come. It makes me so happy when I first started doing this and I was, would talk to attorneys and they'd be like, I mean, what's the point? I mean, I guess okay. And now we really have come to this place where attorneys are like, please go talk to your coach. And I love it.
Because I'm sure back in the day, you would get responses from attorneys saying, I do that. They talk to me and I give them advice and I tell them what to say to their husband. Yeah, you're selling, at $700-800 an hour or whatever your rate is versus.
Right. And you're not trained in that.
Exactly.
Right. Love you, respect you, but I'm not trained in the law. You're not trained as a coach. In your opinion, what is the importance and the place of a divorce coach in the process, especially in the high conflict?
I want every one of my clients to have a coach. I am not just a believer. It's not a belief. It's just a knowing that you will do so much better, because having a therapist is a wonderful thing to do. But the therapist is really looking at your past, helping you to heal so that you don't keep making those same mistakes going forward, right? They're dealing with the present and the past, but the coach, the divorce coach, is dealing with the present, needs to be informed about the past, of course, but is like, where are you now and where do you want to go? Mm-hmm. So they're just moving you in the direction that you are headed, which is the future. Not so much about the past. So I want everyone to have a coach. It will help you set reasonable goals. Mm-hmm. It's a great sounding board for, should I be asking, my lawyer says this, but I know that, and this is how I feel. What's reasonable for you for a goal to have? Mm-hmm. It helps you focus on yourself so you're not always caught up in what the response is that you're getting or what he's doing to you.
Yes. I mean, really, I know people, not clients, because my clients are amazing, but I know people who it's that constant rehashing and it's the magnifying glass. I know people who are divorced, fully divorced, And it's very high conflict, and there's all sorts of, but they are so laser focused on the other person still in this process that they're not living their life. Their whole life is focused on this person that they divorced. It's tragic.
It is.
It's tragic. And when I say you got to like shift your focus here, some people don't want to do that, right? They don't. They would rather that, you know, there's that whole would you rather be right or happy? And some people would rather be right. Those are not my clients.
Most people want to be happy. They just don't know how. So if you are looking to extricate yourself from this unhappy relationship, having a coach will help you do that sooner than later and more effectively. You'll learn how to communicate with them in a less conflictual way. You know, you're not going to trigger them as much. You'll learn how not to be triggered.
That's right.
It'll help speed up the divorce process because you're not getting sidetracked all the time by the things they're doing that they always did during the marriage. It could be years, decades that they've been doing this thing. They're going to do it during the divorce. If you have a sounding board like a coach to really help you put things in perspective, think about how much easier it will be next time they do this. And I'm not going there. I'm not getting involved with
That's
that.
right.
I need to focus on me, the kids, my life, my work, whatever it is. Get us out of this.
Yes.
It helps you it'll save you money. I know it's like, oh, I have to pay another person. Yes, you do. Because I'd rather you pay Kate or anybody rather than me. Our hourly rates are so different, and our expertise is so different.
That's right. I mean, I think it's the collaborative effort. I do say this to my clients all the time. It will save you. And what I love is when I hear attorneys now saying, hire a coach. It will save you money. You know, because again, I am saving my clients the phone calls to their attorneys to be like, well, he did this and he did that. And like, don't you think that that's because I can go, let's unplug for a second, right? First of all, you don't need to make that call to your attorney. That's going to cost you, $800 or more, because what you're complaining about, it doesn't have legal viability, and it's not going to serve your purposes here, which is to get out of this marriage, which is to get out of this relationship, not just the marriage, but the relationship dynamic that has been driving you crazy for years, right? If you want to actually unplug from it, you're going to have to unplug and don't plug back in.
Yeah, I told a potential client I was talking to, my goal for her is to move them. So the only thing that, my goal, if this is what they want for themselves, would be to help them move forward, get divorced, and you only have to talk to your husband or your soon-to-be ex about the kids, and that you'll know how to do that in the least adversarial way possible, how to keep it very simple and factual and not get tied back into that fighting dynamic. If that's what you want, there are people that can help you get there.
One of the things that I think hook people back into these dynamics so easily is issues with their children, right? It would be great if we could just get divorced and never have to talk to these people again or whatever. But, when you have kids, there's always something that you could be putting the microscope on. There's always something that is triggering your mama bear in whatever, right? And so how do you help people or recommend people to keep protecting their children as much as possible, but not get hooked into the dynamic? That's really challenging.
And it's very challenging when, like in most families, there wasn't a 50-50 division of the labor around the children. There's usually not a 50-50 division of labor in anything around in your home or in your relationship. One person does one thing more than the other. And It usually falls to the women because they want to usually be more in control. They're more capable of being more in control of the play dates, the clothes, the shoe size, the doctors, the friends, and it's, even if they have full-time jobs, this is their other full-time job.
That's right.
First step is it only because you have to look at yourself? Is it because you set up this dynamic so that you got to do all these things? Or did he refuse? Were you begging him to, and he wouldn't do anything, and he was incapable of doing, and the kids got hurt on his watch? Like really what happened? In this case, you do have to look to the past a bit here. You have to give your spouse a chance. You have to give him a chance to parent. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be exactly the way you do it, but will they come back alive and basically healthy, not emotionally damaged? Then you have to let him do it his way. I think you really have to look at what happened and be okay with it not being perfect. That's the first step.
Yes. And that's so hard, Andrea, when you're like, but I often tell the story of, I was the stay-at-home mom. And so, I did all that stuff. That was my job. It was my literal job. And then when we got divorced, the first thing, it's one of my favorite stories to tell. I think I told him this recently, and he was like, I said, what? Jesus. He said, well, since I'm paying you spousal support, does that mean you're still going to do my laundry and like come and like cook for me? And I was like, no.
That's very
right.
fun.
And he was like, oh, okay. But the other thing was that when, it was his first weekend with a birthday party on his watch, and he did not know what to do. He was like, I don't know what to get them. I don't know. Maybe the old me would have been like, okay, well, I'll go to Target. I know the kid, I know the parents. I'll text them, see what he wants, or I know what he's into. So I'll go to Target, I'll get the gift. And then I would leave it wrapped, for him to take. When we were married, that's what I would do. In my recovery, I said, you are a really smart and capable man. I am sure you'll figure this out. It gave him the dignity of figuring it out, right? And the dignity of maybe making a mess or whatever, but like learning from his mistakes and figuring it out. And let me tell you, he was more than capable. But if I had continued to do it for him over and over and over again, he would not have figured it out.
How hard was that for you to not do it that first time?
I think by that point, I was so done. It was not that hard. I'd also done a ton of codependency recovery by that point. So I was like, I pretty much knew how to do this. I will say the first time he took my son to a birthday party and didn't bring a present, and my son was upset because it made him look bad. That was the hard one, when I was like, you shit the bed. And it had an impact on our kid. And I'll tell you what, though, he never did it again. Because he felt bad that he had made our son look, not our son look bad, but that our son was upset about it. But he never did it again, right? And so I think what you're saying is so important. We have to take accountability for the system that we either created or we participated in. And that if we're shifting the roles that we're playing, if we played that role and that was our role in the relationship, well, now he's got to take on that role, and we got to give him the opportunity to learn how to do it. And if we're actually collaborative and in service of our children, we might even help them a little bit, right? By saying, hey, you know what I do when I'm in that situation? You don't do it for them. But you say, sometimes if I don't know, I'll just text the parents and ask them, what their kid likes. Right. And then, so you kind of, walk them up to the line. Yeah. But, what you said, I think is so important, that we have to take responsibility. We've got to look at our part in how this dynamic was created so that we can then shift it. And also, I think, name it, right? As a coach, this is what I do. Name it. You know what? It just occurred to me that in our relationship, I have handled this all the time, and now you're going to be handling it half of the time. So let me know if you want some pointers on how I have been doing it all of this time, or go do it your way. But just remember that, like, actually, you're going to have to do this, right? And so you're actually talking about it and naming it in service of your children.
You are, and that's why having the coach is important there. Because if the first time they don't do it your way, and you're calling your lawyer and saying, I can't agree to this, the kid, this, that, or the other thing, or you're going back to your mediator and saying, we can't do it. The coach can kind of talk you off the ledge, or if there's a ledge to be walked off of, So maybe we're talked off of. So try that first. Use that sounding board to get a realistic picture of what's really happening here. But it does not have to lead to more conflict if you are not trying to control it all the time and you just let them be and make some mistakes and learn how to be the 50-50 parent or whatever parent they need to be. It'll be better for your children to see you working together, to learn that dad does something differently than mom, and it's all okay. And if they really want things done a certain way, they can say, I'd rather this or that. Mom or dad, can we try this in this home?
There's no law against bad parenting. And so a lot of people will go to their attorney and try to litigate questionable parenting, bad parenting, benign neglect, things like that, right? And that's what a coach can be like, nobody cares. That's like, whatever.
Yes, let them watch TV when you'd be reading them books. Yeah,
right.
You're not going to get, that's not
That's right. That's right. And there are cases in which children are, could be in some form of either psychological, emotional, or physical danger. And part of our job collectively, my job and your job, is helping them figure out where that line is. And I know we talk a lot about how the family court system is really not designed to recognize some of these patterns and how it can be detrimental. How do you work with clients around that, knowing that the system may not be the best and the most educated about these things?
The system might not be best able to handle these cases. I mean, think about who's going to family court. People who really need that court are children who are seriously abused and neglected. There are people that the state is prosecuting some parents and bringing them into court too. So these judges are seeing the most extreme cases. And if you have an extreme case, you should be in court.
That's right.
But if you don't, I hate when people go to court thinking there's going to be a winner and a loser, right? I'm going to win it all. I'm going to get 100% of the time, or I want sole custody. The chance of that happening is so slim. And if anyone's telling you it's likely, they're not being honest with you, because unless you have one of these extreme cases, you're probably not getting sole anything. That's why I stopped litigating, because no one was ever happy. They came out of court. I thought, oh, we won. As a lawyer, we got this, that, and the other thing that we asked for. Well, I didn't get everything, or they didn't do it it wasn't the exact order that I wanted, the client would say. Well, this is the best we were going to get. Don't you?
Right.
They couldn't understand that. So keeping you out of court and when you're negotiating custody issues and parenting issues, and if you have a very high conflict divorce, we want to keep it child-centered. We want to take the focus off of what the parents are doing each other and say, what is best for the children? It's not, I need my time with the child. It's my turn. The parents will say, it's my turn to have the child. No, it's not about you. It's about your child. What's best for them, not what's best for you. Of course, your schedule is important, and the time constraints on you. Of course, you want to have quality time and quantity of time, but you need to focus on the quality over the quantity.
That's right.
That's what's going to be best for the children. Don't focus on 50-50 or a percentage, because that sets you up for very positional negotiations. So I want to find out, why do you want this amount of time? What's important to you about waking up in the morning with the child, or being able to walk them to school? Let's talk about what you do with them, what you want to do with them, why it's best for the kids. And then we can have something to argue or talk about.
Right.
How to get you more of that type of time. The court won't do that.
No, right. Exactly. The court will not do that. And I like that idea of, because you might find out that, I don't know, that there's something really special about that time. And that if you explain it in a mediation, let's say, and you say it to your ex in a way that is not, I want, or I need, or that it's, so, in that time when we walk to school, these are the conversations we're having, and this is the connection and the bond we're making, or whatever. You might be able to say it in a way that your soon-to-be ex can hear it and actually be like, oh, wow, I can see how that's amazing for our kid, as long as they're not like a sociopath who doesn't actually care what's best for their kid. Because when you're in that level, of a high conflict case, which is like, again, there's a spectrum to everything. But when you're on that level of high conflict, you're dealing with a person who is only about winning and losing. They're only about winning. That's all they care about.
And if that's where they stay, once you've hired the best non-adversarial lawyers you can find, and you put that team around you, you have the professionals to support you, and they're still digging in and not making movement, cut your losses and go hire the litigator. That's what I say. And you should be making sure your attorney knows up front, like, I need you to tell me when to call it. If this isn't working, I need you, lawyer, to be the one to tell me to go to court. Now, I've told people, I think you need to end this process and go to court. It doesn't happen very often, and they don't want to.
Sure.
And we have to have the conversation multiple times. Sometimes they go too soon and sometimes they don't go soon enough, but we're going to have a conversation. So find a lawyer that you can trust to do that. Find a coach that you can trust to do that.
That's right. That's right. And, also just to be clear, when your mediator or collaborative attorney or your coach says, I think we need to call it and go to court, that doesn't mean that I think there's a bit of a misconception about what it means to go to court, because litigation is a very, very, very long, drawn out process. And you're going to have one hearing set up for this one thing, and you're going to be like, okay, so I'm going to make sure that I bring all this information and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you're literally going for that one thing. And that's the only thing they're going to talk about. So if you want to talk about those other things, you're going to have to file another motion. Right. And it can go on for years.
But if you need, sometimes you just need the court system to kind of shake things up and make sure they're going to present the information that you've been asking for 6 months for them to produce, and they don't do it.
Yes.
And then I had a client I just checked in with. His wife makes tens of millions of dollars a year.
Crazy.
A lot of money. She's a very, very well. And she has delayed. She delayed. She pushed back all the time. She wouldn't come to negotiation. She wouldn't produce documents. I finally had to say, you need to find another lawyer. And he did. I checked in with him recently. It's been 6 months. They still don't have a court date because she has all these excuses. I'm a very high-powered woman. I can't possibly be there. And the court's like, okay. And then then they assigned a new judge. And then when the judge assigned a new date, she's like, sorry, I won't be in the country. So it's going to be a year since I said goodbye to him before they have their first court date.
That's right. And then it's just going to be a status hearing, and it's not going to really be about anything. It's not going to be a decision made in that time. Oh, I know. It can be such a long and arduous process, which is why we want to try to avoid it at all costs. Coming back to our first premise, which is avoid it at all costs, but also sometimes you can't avoid it. So, Andrea, tell us, who are the clients that you most work with, and where can they find you?
Okay. Yeah. So we have the majority of our clients in the divorce realm, because we help a lot of people with prenuptial agreements as well. So that we set them up for better divorces. So they don't have to be in conflict in their divorce. But for the clients that we help divorce, typically our clients come from the New York area, New York City, downstate area, but also some throughout the New York State. And they typically have children. They are either both high wage earners, or one is and one could be, but is not working right now for whatever reason. They usually have professional degrees. So they're really smart, savvy people that are just not in good relationships. And they haven't been in a good relationship for a long time. And it could, even if it was just a few years, it could feel like a long time.
Right.
They're just ready. Because most of them have children, whether they're young children or adult children, their children are really important to them. And so they see the benefit of having a less adversarial divorce. And that's what we're known for, keeping, clients out of court whenever we can, because we don't litigate, and helping them move on with an agreement that really covers everything, looks at the what ifs, has an agreement that if anything comes up, we probably talked about what happens in this situation. So they don't have to go back to court. They don't have to come back to mediation. It's all worked out there. They can put it away, move on with their lives. That's our client who wants to be able to move on with their life, not be still talking about their ex 20 years from now. our website, vaccalaw.com, VACCALAW.com. We have our blogs, podcasts, videos, all kinds of materials. I have an ebook called Divorce Without Court, A More Peaceful Solution. You can get that there.
And everything will be linked in the show notes where all good things live. Andrea, thank you so much for coming back on and talking about this really important topic.
Thanks, Kate. So great to see you again. Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Divorce Survival Guide podcast. If you like what you hear, head on over to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen in and leave me a review. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram at the Divorce Survival Guide. I'll see you next time, and until then, remember, you, my love, deserve to be happy.